Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's edition of Daily Kos. This is The Brief with me, Markos Moulitsas. I am the founder of Daily Kos, the nation's largest online progressive community where we don't just inform and educate, we also give you ways to take control of your politics and make this a more progressive nation. This week, my guest will be Daily Kos staff writer Carrie Eleveld, and we're going to be talking about all things November, about the coming election, about Joe Biden's potential VP pick, and the prognosis to this year's elections. But before we do that, I'm going to do a little bit of table setting. So I'm going to say something that is extremely controversial amongst liberals. It's just three words, but it's nobody likes to hear it. So here goes. You ready? Okay. Democrats are winning. I know, I know. You felt that little bit of your heart kind of squeezed a little bit, right? Because we all remember how we felt in 2016. We all thought Hillary Clinton was going to win. And that sense of shattered expectations, nobody wants to go through that again. But that doesn't mean that we ignore reality. And let's liken this to a football game, to the Super Bowl. This last Super Bowl, the San Francisco 49ers were winning at halftime. They were winning into the fourth quarter and they lost. So just because you're winning at halftime doesn't mean anybody has won. We still have to play the game. So the reality of the matter politically is that Democrats are winning. We still have to play out the next 5 months, but we are winning. And so here is the state of play. In 2018, Democrats won 41 seats in the House, and there's absolutely nobody that thinks that the House is in play, not even House Republicans. They've all conceded. Democrats are raising twice as much money. They are doing far better on recruiting. Republicans have failed to recruit top-tier candidates in most of those seats that they lost. They would need to pick up 18 seats, and the reality is that they may actually lose ground. Democrats are on the offensive, particularly in suburban districts where they came close in 2018. And we'll be talking a lot about those suburban districts because they are one of the biggest reasons that Democrats have changed their fortunes since 2016. We have the Senate, where we need to pick up a net 3 seats to have a 50-50 Senate. And if we win the White House, we have the tie-breaking vote. So we are probably going to lose a seat in Alabama. So we need to pick up 4 seats. We are doing extremely well in Arizona, Colorado, and North Carolina. Daily Kos and Civics released a poll on Tuesday that showed that we are tied in 2 Senate seats in Georgia. We are about tied in a Senate seat in Montana. So that's 3 more. And then we have second-tier opportunities in a bunch of other states. Sorry, I forgot Maine. Maine is up there. And we have opportunities in Texas and Iowa. And so the odds are right now, if I had to guess, is that we will have a 50-50 Senate at worst. And the big question will be just how big of a majority Democrats will have when all the votes are counted. So the Senate is looking very, very good. And then the presidency, there are 7 battleground states: Arizona, Florida, Georgia, Michigan, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. And according to recent polling, we are ahead, or Joe Biden is ahead in all 7 states. That would make a 350 to 188 electoral victory, electoral map wipeout of Donald Trump. And so the key is, even in Georgia, we're ahead in not just Daily Kos Civics poll found out Tuesday that Joe Biden is leading in Georgia 48-47, but we weren't even the first to find Joe Biden ahead. 3 Republican polls in the last 2 weeks also found Joe Biden ahead by a point. Now, we're not winning by a lot in those 7 states. I mean, we're talking 1 to 3 points in each of those states, so a lot could change. But right now, if we're going to call this halftime, Democrats are winning. They have almost a guaranteed lock in the House. Their chances in the Senate are better than even of taking a majority, and a clear majority, a 51 seat or more majority. And in those 7 key battleground states, Joe Biden is winning all of them. So yes, Democrats are winning, and it's okay to say Democrats are winning. Doesn't mean you stop fighting, doesn't mean you stop playing the game. It just means that we're doing things the right way. Let's just keep doing what we've been doing. So that is the table. I've said it. And with that, and without further ado, I am going to bring our guest this week on the show. She is Carrie Eleveld. She's a Daily Kos staff writer focusing on so much: elections, the pandemic, Congress, and the White House. She is a former White House press correspondent. Carrie, how much do you wish you were in that White House press room right now?
You know what? Not even a little bit. not that West Wing is so infected right now. I don't want any piece of that thing. So I'm telling you, whatever question I might be, itching to ask isn't near as important as just staying like a long ways away from that place.
Oh my God, that's so funny. So I just spent a few minutes talking about the current state of play. You also track these same trends closely. What is your broad sense of what November is going to look like?
I had to pick myself up off the floor just a little bit after that Democrats are winning thing. So I'm a little disoriented and still trying to, bring myself back. But no, Democrats are in a decent place right now, right? That's true. Trump is not in a good place, and he is behaving like a man in desperation. The problem is that just like every year of Trump, every month of Trump, every 24 hours of Trump, no one has any idea what's going to happen in the next, what we got? 8 months? What is it?
5 months. 5 months. 5 months. No,
oh my God.
It's not that far away.
5 months. Whew. All right. So sorry. Once again, look at that. So anyway, but the point is that, I think what we do know are the 2 major players that will decide the election, right? Which is the pandemic and the economy, and how Trump is viewed having played both of those issues. I think that this could go any number of ways from my vantage point, looking at, a fair amount of the science. And I'm not a scientist, but I'm reading the studies and listening to the doctors and, the actual people who are experts in infectious disease and whatever. And it's hard for me to imagine that without laying any of the groundwork that we've needed to lay in order to reopen safely, that is testing, national testing plan, a tracking and tracing plan, that we aren't, that this rush to reopen isn't going to somehow backfire. It just seems, I don't want to say inevitable. I'm certainly not rooting for a disaster, right? But what Trump has set us up for as a nation is a disaster. So if you look at what's happening in Germany, what is likely happening here is quite different, of course. And it seems like what Trump has done has made a potentially bad situation the worst possible situation anyone on earth could have ever imagined through an unparalleled amount of ineptitude, right? So, my best guess, right? We know we have the economy as a player and we have the coronavirus as a player in terms of how the elections are going to play out. But my best guess at this point is it's just hard to imagine that we don't see a really unfortunate uptick in cases as we reopen without the proper groundwork being laid through testing and tracking and containment. And then it's going to be a matter of in the fall, whether or not Trump can point enough fingers, enough different ways, like Yosemite Sam.
It's China's fault. It's
right.
WHO's fault. It's
right,
the Democrats'
exactly.
fault. It's
So,
Obama.
it's Obama, it's everyone but me, and I'm the victim. I'm the victim. So, it really is going to come down to whether or not Trump is successfully able to convince people and create sort of enough confusion about what he's done and hasn't done to, manage somehow to eke out a victory in November.
He barely did so in 2016 in a much different climate without any kind of record. And we had these things called double haters,
right?
Where people who didn't like either candidate decided, we've seen enough of Hillary Clinton. Let's try this Trump guy. And he won, according to the exit polls. Trump won those double haters like 54-39. And what we're seeing in polling right now is that double haters, people who don't like Trump and also don't like Joe Biden, it's not even close. It's like 60% Biden, 10% Trump. I mean, it's a whole nother world.
One thing I think people forget about that election in 2016 is there were two of the most unpopular nominees basically in history. And so those people who were deciding between, Trump and Clinton weren't thinking, gee, which one of these candidates do I like better? Instead, they were thinking, the vast majority of them were thinking, which one of these candidates am I going to hold my nose for and vote? And that was pretty historically unprecedented, because usually those last bit of voters who haven't decided people are deciding which candidate they like better, not which candidate they can, think they can live with maybe, so like it's totally different. It was a totally different election. And right now, as you say, Biden's winning that faction of people who really don't like either candidate. Clinton ultimately lost them.
It's you see that in you look at Trump and you look at the way he acts, and he is a monumentally weak candidate, and he knows this, right? This is why he's investigate Hunter Biden, investigate Obama. He's trying to find ways to rally, to show that he's not at fault, that he's that victim, like you said. That was a good word, and that's a sign of weakness, not a sign of strength. And I'm always struck by Republicans who claim to want strong leaders, and how everybody's so triggered when they have somebody as weak as Donald Trump.
So Trump just, of course, this week just traveled to the Hill to, zoom on in for a second. It just traveled over to Capitol Hill to meet, to huddle with Senate Republicans. Well, American deaths are nearing 100,000 due to the coronavirus, right? So you think that maybe that would have been sort of a main topic of conversation, vaccines and testing and how we're going to get this stuff in order so that when we get to the fall, we can really present, what our action plan was and how we tackled this national crisis. And no, that was like a total afterthought to him. He spent all the time with Senate Republicans talking about, we need to stick together and you need to stay strong against the Democrats. And he said Pelosi was mean. And Pelosi did call him morbidly obese while worrying about his health the other day. So, that was pretty fantastic, actually. But anyway, so, I laughed at that 3 times, I think. Okay, that was small of me. But anyway, but he didn't really spend any time talking about the coronavirus. That was not a main topic of conversation. It was completely tangential. All he's doing was talking about his polls, talking about sticking together, talking about Joe Biden. And he needs those Senate Republicans to decide that especially the vulnerable ones, right, that you were just talking about. He needs those Senate Republicans to decide, I can't afford to throw Trump overboard. Everybody's in this together. We're all in the boat together, and we either sink or swim together. So he is there rallying the troops because he knows that just last month, the Senate Republicans put out a memo saying, hey, forget about trying to defend Trump. Just, talk about how China's at fault and all the great things you're doing, but don't spend a lot of time defending Trump. And Trump went, had a little meltdown over that.
He can't handle that. No, it's a sign of weakness that he can't handle that. So you mentioned the economy. This is a big one. that is actually what is driving this desperation to reopen the country before the time is right to do so. And it's because the second quarter of a election year, which is April, May, June, we're in it right now, the economic perception in this quarter historically has a direct correlation on who wins the White House.
Right.
And we're in uncharted territory right now, right? 36 million as of last week. So probably well over 40 million people have lost their jobs.
Yeah, I mean,
at this point.
The numbers they have down right now are clearly an undercount, but sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, no. So that's what's driving that desperation. It's the idea that, oh, well, some people are going to die, but we need to open the country. But what we're finding, and we've seen, and not just here, but overseas as well, just because you say a business is open doesn't mean people are going to show up. Now,
Right.
The 30% Trump fanatics, they may go to Disney World if it opened up tomorrow. But most people kind of want to be alive and not sick, correct?
In almost every poll that's been out in this last week or so, and there's constant polling coming out, there's about 2/3 of people in almost every poll that say, I don't feel safe yet going back to, restaurants and going back to big sporting events, and I'm not sure about opening schools. I think that was an even higher number. So, those numbers have come down a little bit, mostly because we've lost some Republicans, right? Because Trump's pushing, we got to open the economy, and the GOP death march with some people just have to sacrifice, like your grandma. But it's unbelievable. So I just stopped on that myself. But I just can't believe that we're talking about a major party pushing this line of thinking. But anyway, so when it comes down to it. This is what they're pushing, and it's hard to imagine how it's going to go well.
Yeah, no, and Carrie, I love and respect you dearly, but as long as you're a potential vector of disease, I'm okay talking to you via Zoom.
Yeah, me too. You, stay away, but you're a great guy, and I love you as a boss. So anyway.
Exactly. Okay, so let's make a little turn here, and let's talk about vice president, because this is a bigger and bigger issue. So this is probably the biggest political mystery for the next couple of months, is who Joe Biden will pick as his running mate. Now, we know it's going to be a woman. Beyond that, we don't have anything from him explicitly. The word I've heard is that the candidates are senators, Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts, Amy Klobuchar of Minnesota, Kamala Harris of California, and maybe Stacey Abrams. That's debatable. She is of Georgia. And my theory of the case when it comes to VPs is that their one job is to get the ticket elected. And Hillary Clinton violated that by picking Tim Kaine, saying, I want somebody who will be ready to step in my shoes on day one if something happens to me. And that's a great sentiment. But you know what? She's not president because she didn't pick somebody that unified the party or brought new demographics into the party. So here's Joe Biden, and he has to make this big decision. And I've been arguing that there are two candidates that can unify the party and bring energy to the ticket. That's Elizabeth Warren and Stacey Abrams. I know you have strong opinions on this as well. What's your take on Joe Biden's VP?
Well, so so anyone who watches their site regularly or reads the site regularly knows that I became a big Warren fan. And just to be clear, when the race started, I kind of thought, out of the gate, Warren made a huge mistake with releasing the DNA testing and all that stuff. And so I had kind of written her off. I was much more interested in Kamala Harris. And over time, Warren actually really won me over, to the point where, after not giving to political candidates since I basically started reporting on politics, and I still have a little bit of this old journalistic, you don't give, most people at Daily Kos don't have that. But this time I started donating to Elizabeth Warren, which was kind of like a unique threshold for me. So, one of the things, so I don't know who he's going to pick. I mean, there's a lot of people I could get excited about, right? Warren is still my number one pick for VP because she was my number one pick for president. And some people have reasons that they like her for president but don't like her for VP. My biggest, what really crushed me when she finally dropped out of the race was, I feel like this is a moment for what she calls big structural change, right? We are in a crisis moment. Everybody is rethinking everything. And if Democrats manage to retake the White House, they will have an opportunity to literally like kind of build the government from the ground up because Trump's destroyed it. And, enact things, especially if there's, sort of a major sweep and we take the Senate, which is looking like not a done deal, but a better possibility as months go by, right?
No filibuster. No filibuster to get in the way.
And the filibuster. I mean, I just looked at this opportunity and thought historically and thought this is going to be a historic opportunity for a Democratic president to make a huge difference. And I wasn't sure Biden had the fire in his belly to do that. But if he picks Warren, I feel like he does. And what people forget is, the chance to enact really big structural change, to get something like the Affordable Care Act through, which Obama did, and I wish he had done more. I like Obama as a president and a guy, and he's brilliant in many ways, and I just wish he had accomplished more of his agenda, even though I was covering LGBTQ politics at the time, and he got a lot of that done with a little help, I would say, from the activists. But that's another story. But the point is that this opportunity usually only comes around where you have a chance to do these major historical changes, like once in a generation. Like you have FDR, during the Great Depression. You have LBJ during the Civil Rights Movement, right? It's usually like a once in a generation opportunity. Well, we had the opportunity to give 20 million more Americans health care during Barack Obama's presidency. Republicans have done such a disastrous job, and Trump is so bad and so inept, and they've built him into a monster and turned him loose on the nation just as the coronavirus was landing on U.S. shores, that it's possible that they've set up an opportunity for a big, big night for Democrats in November and sweeping changes. And this is one of the reasons that I'm super excited about the prospect of having Warren as vice president, because she has all of those, ready plans on the shelf, ready to go. She's thought through them. She basically turned her campaign into a think tank about, how can we enact change so that more, to bolster the middle class and to bring the working poor out of poverty and into the middle class, and to make government work for, the vast majority of the people rather than the top, 1 to 10%. And this could be a real opportunity to do that. And she has so much passion on these issues. I would just, I would love to see it. I would be super excited about it.
Even if it's a white man being elected and the woman does all the work as usual.
Even so, I mean, if Biden picks Warren, that is a signal to me. I mean, they are obviously, they've been floating some trial balloons. You've been writing about this on the site, and you have even a better backlog of those trial balloons than I do. But they've, been inching up to this and kind of suggesting that this is where they're headed. And I feel like that's an opportunity for anyone who has major objections to get them out there so that they can, campaign can decide, if this was indeed our choice, what could, can we live with it? Is it a good choice? And anyway, but, yeah. You said even if the woman does all the work, sure, that's fine with me. That's fine with me. And I think if Biden chooses Warren, what he's signaling is he doesn't want a wallflower. he doesn't want a potted plant, you know, on a desk somewhere, or some mini-me who's gonna like retrieve his water off the desk as soon as dear leader retrieves his water off the desk. I mean, you know, Pence is just what a buffoon. But anyway, so yeah, I mean, that would be a huge signal to me that Biden is serious about doing some big stuff.
Yeah, no, Biden has been talking a good game, right? Talking about a New Deal type of presidency. And so, you know, there's a cynic in me that wonders, is he just playing to that rally the party, unify the party sort of need that he has? And by talking a good game and sounding like Warren or Bernie Sanders, that maybe it helps unify the party. And I think it kind of works. It makes me like him a lot better, for sure. If you pick Warren, though, I think that would be the sort of the confirmation. And I say the same thing about Stacey Abrams too. If he were to pick either of them, it sort of confirms that he's really interested in having a strong, strident, powerful woman that will get stuff done. And that stuff isn't going to be any of the stuff that really annoys us about Democrats, about playing footsie with Wall Street and wanting to threaten our Social Security programs, right?
Right.
Things like that. As the exact opposite. It's that fundamental structural change that Warren talked about. So he seems to be talking a good game. Do you trust him?
I don't really trust that many politicians.
Right.
Sorry. I mean, you know, even the Democrats, you know, I believe in having heroes, but I don't believe in hero worship, you know, and I think we all need heroes. Politicians, I think, inevitably at some point, no matter how much you like them or love them, you know, they find a way to disappoint you somehow, right? And so there aren't hardly any politicians that I 100% trust. And so it's a tough question for me. I think it's important to keep some objectivity, because even though people don't necessarily like it, progressives and Democrats, sometimes I think it's really important to criticize what Democrats are doing. And it's not a particularly popular posture, but I've done it many times and won't stop doing it. So anyway, what I do.
We're not Trump supporters in any way, or Trump media, right? That's never been our
let's be clear. I mean, I don't think I've pulled a lever. I think maybe one time when I was living in New York, I may have voted for Michael Bloomberg.
Ooh, wow.
Sorry. That may be the sole
Should we go back and delete this part?
What?
Should we go back and scrub this?
I mean, it's the truth. How many years ago was that? I mean, it was long time before I was working for this site. It was like in yeah. Anyway, we can scrub that if you want, but
so Carrie, we're out of time.
We're not Republicans here. What I do trust is that Biden's team seems to be putting out, you know, Warren as a real possibility. They've been so public about that. It would have been a mistake if they weren't seriously considering her, because they wouldn't want to build a bunch of excitement about that possibility and then just, you know, for the heck of it, just do that and then turn back on it, right? So I'm not saying they couldn't still choose somebody else. They totally could. But if she wasn't a serious contender, they wouldn't have been putting out all these, you know, smoke signals.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Carrie, it's all the time we have. I swear we could sit here for a couple hours and talk about this. And you know, it's funny. I think I had 5 or 6 questions written out, and we got to 2 of them. That's how great the conversation was. And so thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. Thanks to everybody who listened. Thank you to Walter Einenkel, who does the production work for the show, to Carrie for being on the show, and to you for being the change that this country needs. Thank you so very much. Talk to you all next week. Bye-bye.